remarks you've made about withdrawal. We are now moving to question time, and I'm calling Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. President, my question is to the Leader of the Government in the Senate, Senator Wong. Minister, on the 4th of June 2021, in a Senate committee hearing when confronted about whether Senator Gallagher knew of allegations of an alleged assault before they became public, she said, "No one had any knowledge. How dare you?" Over the last few days, she has admitted in this chamber that she did know about the allegations before they became public and received information about them. Minister, will you ask Senator Gallagher to admit that she misled the Senate and to simply correct the record?
Senator Wong.
Again, I do not accept the assertions that the Leader of the Opposition makes in that question. Senator Gallagher has made a statement to the Senate this week and has been asked multiple questions, and she has made clear what her knowledge was, and she has responded to, I think, basically the same question that Senator Birmingham has put to me today. She's responded to that directly. I would make the point here, a point about respect, if I may. We seem to have forgotten in this debate and in this chamber what actually occurred here. And those opposite seem to be unable to accept their own responsibilities, unable to accept that one of their own staff felt disrespected in her workplace. They seem to be unable to accept that she might have exercised her own agency and told her own story in her own voice. And now they compound that disrespect with the use of personal text messages and other confidential information being leaked to the media. And I think the message that many Australians looking at this would take is that the message is those opposite are willing, instead of accounting for their own actions, to punish those who speak out.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Birmingham, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, in the same Estimates Committee hearing on the 4th of June, when you and Senator Gallagher were continuously asking questions about this very matter in the parliament, you also made the statement, "I had no knowledge of this until that night." Minister, will you simply correct the record?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I've made clear in my statements to this place and publicly that I did not know the full details of Ms Higgins' allegations until she chose to tell her story, and I have made clear that I and Senator Gallagher played no role in making this matter public, as was asserted by Senator Reynolds that night. Her assertion was incorrect.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Birmingham, second supplementary.
Thanks, President. Minister, when did you first learn that the alleged victim was going to reveal her allegations to the media? Specifically, when did you learn that she would reveal those allegations to the media, and who did you discuss that information with if you learnt it before they were revealed to the media?
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. Senator Wong.
I refer to my answers yesterday about this, and I again say I didn't know the full details of Ms Higgins' allegations until she chose to tell her story in reports published on Monday the 15th of February. I also, to the best of my memory, I didn't know her identity until after these reports, and I had no contact with her partner or her
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Birmingham.
President, on direct relevance, yesterday some questions were asked which the minister responded to about the breadth of her knowledge or when she received information. Today, this is a very specific question that goes specifically to when she learnt that the allegations would be revealed in the media. I asked the minister to be directly relevant to that question, which I repeated twice to be very clear and specific about when she learnt the allegations would be revealed in the media.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham. I believe the minister is being directly relevant to the question, and I'll invite her to continue, and I'll continue to listen to her answer.
And what I would say is I knew there are those on the other side who knew a lot more, a lot earlier. Yep. And the question is, well, you see, I'll take the interjection. It's not about us, it's about you. The former Attorney-General has really been very clear about this. It's not about us, it's about you. That's what it's all about from those on that side. Not about Ms Higgins, not about women who are watching.
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Senator Ruston, I have just called the chamber to order and you have completely disrespected that request. Your constant interjections are disorderly. I'm asking you to stop it. Minister, please continue.
Is that my time? No, it's 2 seconds.
Senator Payman.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Climate Change and Energy, Senator Wong. The Liberals and Nationals wasted nearly a decade with denial and inaction on climate change. It created uncertainty for industry and left Australia without a clear pathway for our energy future. How is the Albanese government investing in future-proofing our energy system and taking action on climate change?
Minister Wong. Yes, sorry.
Thank
I
you.
was too quiet.
Thank you, President, and thank you to Senator Payman for the question. This is one of the big differences between this side of the chamber and the other side of the chamber. It's true that we don't have our climate policy determined by Barnaby Joyce. That's true. We are taking action on this side of the chamber to ensure Australia's position to become a renewable energy superpower. And the budget funds critical investments to save Australians money on their energy bills and to support nation-building new industries. And everyone knows that for too long Australians were left behind under the Liberals and Nationals while the rest of the world moved to take advantage of the economic opportunities that come with action on cleaner, cheaper energy. Now the Albanese government is acting on the mandate of the Australian people, which I know Senator Hughes has a lot of difficulty with, who clearly voted for action, particularly in Victoria, on climate change last year.
Senator Wong, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator Watt. Senator Watt. Senator Henderson. Senator Henderson. Senator Henderson, I've called you to order 3 times. Minister, please continue.
As I said, the Australian people who clearly voted for action on climate change last year, and this government is responding to that call from the Australian people. We are rewiring the nation. We are funding the Rewiring the Nation plan, a $20 billion investment in connecting landmark renewable energy projects with the grid so they are powering Australian homes and businesses. And this budget also provides funding for the Capacity Investment Scheme, underwriting investment to bring on new supply of clean, dispatchable power across the country. Let's remember what their legacy was. 4 gigs out, 1 gig in. Let's remember that's what you delivered. That's what you delivered to the Australian people.
Thank you, Senator Wong. Senator Payman, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Can the Minister please explain to the Senate how these investments will strengthen our economy and create employment opportunities?
Senator Wong.
Well, the government's plan, the Albanese government's budget, isn't just a plan for cleaner and cheaper energy, it's an economic plan. Because those opposite might like to continue to fight the wars of times past, but the reality is Australia fell behind the pack in the global race for new energy jobs and investment. And across this country we need to support businesses and governments.
Senator Hughes, and a lot of people on my left and across the chamber on my right, the interjections are disorderly, and particularly across the chamber. Minister, please continue.
I know it's difficult for them to hear something positive on climate. They've always found it hard. And you know, eventually the Australian people just said enough is enough. In Australia, we need to support businesses and governments to harness their immense potential to build new industries and create jobs, which is why we are establishing a new net zero authority. It will help workers in emissions-intensive sectors to access new employment skills and support as the net zero transformation continues. The authority is about ensuring no one is left behind.
Has expired. Senator Payman, second supplementary.
13 months in, and our government hasn't wasted a single day. Great to hear. The Liberals and Nationals delay.
Senator Payman, please resume your seat. Order on my left. Order. I could not even hear the question. Senator Payman, please start your question again.
I won't mention the first comment. The Liberals and Nationals' denial and delay on climate action left industry with no certainty. How does the Albanese...
Senator Payman, please resume your seat. I've just sat Senator Payman down and called for order, and almost immediately, when I invited her to continue with her question, the disorder started again. That is disrespectful. Senator Payman, please continue.
The Liberals and Nationals' denial and delay on climate action left industry with no certainty. Minister, how does the Albanese government's budget invest in new job-creating industries?
Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. Well, members of this government understand the immense potential our country has as a renewable energy superpower. It's why we're investing $2 billion in the Hydrogen Head Start program. Well, why do they hate clean energy and renewable energy so much is the question, isn't it? Well, listen to them. Why do they hate clean energy and renewable energy so much?
Order. Order.
Where exactly?
Order. Order. Senator McAllister. Order. This is question time. I should not have to be calling the chamber to Senator Rennick. Most of the comments so far have come from the President. It is not question time for me or comment time from me. It's question time across the chamber. And I'm constantly having to call people to order. Minister, please continue.
This government is investing $2 billion in the Hydrogen Head Start program to bridge the commercial gap between the cost of hydrogen production from renewables and its current market price for early projects. It aims to support 2 to 3 flagship large-scale projects to deliver up to a gigawatt electrolyser capacity by 2030. In turn, Australia will be able to take advantage of the immense jobs and investment potential of the technology. This is about secure jobs with a long-term future and Australia being a global leader in hydrogen.
Thank you. Minister. Senator Cash.
Thank you. And my question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Minister, I refer to the allegations of sexual assault that were the subject of intense questioning by you over the months from February 2021. Did you or your office seek any briefing from police or prosecutors on evidence and procedural laws to ensure that your pursuit of those allegations in the Parliament and the media did not affect any investigation into this matter?
Senator Wong.
President, this Parliament and this chamber has had a lot of focus on these issues in these last days. And as I said yesterday, I have taken the view that it was appropriate for questions to be asked and answered. But I would ask you as chair, given the number of questions that have been asked, to recall President Hogg's ruling in 2014 in relation to the scope of questions and making it clear that questions about historical events before a senator became a minister are not in order. Now, we've not chosen till now to put that to you, but given yesterday we had a question about a wedding, I think it's probably a time that the Senate start to look at whether or not the questions in fact comply with the rulings of Senator Hogg.
Senator Birmingham.
Thanks, President. President, on the point of order, I would invite you, in considering that, to consider the fact that in the previous parliament more than 50 questions were asked directly on these related issues to then ministers. that the questions that have been asked over the course of this week relate to statements that were made by Senator Gallagher, by Senator Wong in the parliament, statements that they've subsequently made outside of the parliament in response to media queries as ministers, that through that there are a range of precedents that determine the validity of the questions that have been asked, the reasonableness of them continuing to be asked if necessary. These questions could have been curtailed had we indeed had a situation where Senator Gallagher had acknowledged that she misled and had simply corrected the record, having acknowledged that. However, that's not been the case, and so the opposition has chosen to ask what we contend are reasonable questions, consistent with existing practice and precedent, and within that, consistent indeed very much with the type of prosecution we've seen of similar matters before.
Thank you, Senator Birmingham and Senator Wong. I'll seek the advice of the clerk. Order. Order. Order across the chamber. So Senator Wong has raised an order by previous President Hogg, and Senator Birmingham has made comments. I am advised that the link is tenuous, and I'm going to invite Senator Gallagher to answer the question to the extent that she thinks is necessary, and I will also take the matter on notice and, if necessary, come back to the chamber with a further statement. Thank you. Minister Gallagher.
Then could I ask that Senator Cash repeat the question?
Yes, Senator Cash.
Thank you, and I refer to the allegations of sexual assault that were the subject of intense questioning by you over the months from February 2021. Did you or your office seek any briefing from police or prosecutors on evidence and procedural laws to ensure that your pursuit of those allegations did not affect any investigation into this matter?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. And the formulation of our questions was done in the normal way through our own processes. I would say that throughout those questions we were always conscious of making sure that our questions didn't go to issues that may be raised and considered through further or future investigations. And I have certainly not, and I can check the record on this, there was no feedback from any of those authorities that the questions we were asking, that they were concerned about. I mean, we are in the Australian Senate. I don't know how many times people vet their questions through other organisations, but well, I completely reject that. I completely reject the weaponisation allegations. I reject the allegation and the assertion just made by Senator Ruston that I am a disgrace and that I don't hold myself to the same standards as them.
Please resume your seat. A serious question has been asked. The minister is, in a very genuine way, attempting to answer it, and then there are interjections, and then there are interjections across the chamber. That is disrespectful. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. So I think I've addressed the question, and I would say the only time where we considered and changed our approach was when Senator Reynolds sought our assistance. And I think if you go back and check the record, you will see that we responded to those requests made in front of Senator Ruston.
Senator Cash.
That we did consider the request that was put to us and change our approach.
Senator Cash and Senator Henderson, I don't know how many times I have to call you to order, and you are being disrespectful of the authority that I carry in this chamber. And I would ask you to reflect on what you're saying, and I would ask you to treat questions and answers with respect. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. And again, in relation to the allegations of sexual assault that were the subject of intense questioning by you over the months from February 2021, did you or your office seek any advice on whether your decision to pursue those allegations over months in the Parliament and the media could hinder the prospect of a fair trial and damage any prospect of conviction?
Minister Gallagher.
Well, I refer to my earlier answer, and I would say again, the allegations that we sought to ask questions about was that a young woman, allegations that a young woman had something dreadful happen to her in this building that we work in. Is anyone suggesting that there shouldn't have been questions asked about how that occurred? That is the issue here. There were public allegations made about 2 Liberal staffers in a minister's office, which had traumatised a young woman to the point that she went.
Senator Watt, I'm asking you to refrain from interjecting, and once again, I'm asking you, Senator Henderson and Senator Cash, to also do the same. Minister, please continue.
So the suggestion that we shouldn't have asked questions, I think, is unreasonable. I am answering the question. Senator Ruston, I am answering all of the questions. But the idea that we shouldn't have asked questions is unreasonable.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Thank you. And did you or your office, in relation to the allegations of sexual assault which were pursued, seek any advice on whether your decision to pursue those allegations over months in both the Parliament and the media could be damaging to the privacy, health and well-being of the very many people involved, including others in this building?
Senator Watt. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you.
Not many.
We asked reasonable questions that I think the public would have expected us to answer, considering the seriousness of the allegations that have been raised.
Resume your seat. Minister Wong. Order.
It gets worse.
Did you have a point of order, Minister?
I was asking Senator Cash to perhaps cease for a moment in her interjections while the senator was on her feet.
Order. These are serious matters. I've said that over and over again. I am being fair across the chamber. I want the questions asked in silence and I want the answers responded to in silence. It is legitimate to call points of order, but it is not legitimate to keep calling out across the chamber. And I think it's not fair to make me the arbiter of your behaviour. You're in control of whether you shout out or not. And I will keep sitting the minister down and drawing it to the chamber's attention. I'm asking you to listen in respectful silence from both sides of the chamber. I don't think that is an outrageous ask. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. And we were mindful of people's health and well-being. We considered that deeply, but we also had to ask questions that needed to be asked about something that happened in this building.
Order. Minister, please resume your seat. Order on my left, particularly, and on my right. Minister, please continue.
So we asked reasonable questions at that time. We were mindful of people's health and well-being. I know you might find that hard to answer. And when those issues were raised directly with us, and Senator Ruston knows this, when those issues were raised directly with us, we responded appropriately.
Thank you, Senator Cash. I think that ends your questions. I do want to draw to the attention of honourable senators the presence in the gallery of the Australian Political Exchanges Council's 36th delegation from the United States of America, led by the Honourable Zachary Ister. And on behalf of all senators, I wish you a warm welcome to Australia and in particular to the Senate. Senator Waters.
Thanks very much, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Health and Aged Care, Senator Gallagher. The Senate inquiry into universal access to reproductive health care found that it was a postcode lottery. Consensus cross-party recommendations to improve access were made, including that all public hospitals be equipped to provide abortions or timely referral to an affordable local provider. Will this government consider a return to their 2019 policy of requiring publicly funded hospitals to provide the full range of reproductive health care services?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Waters for the question and the question about a very important report to the government from this chamber, the Ending the Postcode Lottery report, addressing barriers to sexual, maternity and reproductive health care. The short answer is, Senator Waters, that the government will respond to the report. We welcome it. We acknowledge that there is an inequity in the health system when it comes to maternal and reproductive health care. We acknowledge that there's a lot of work to do, particularly when we've inherited a health care system in the state that we did, particularly in primary care, where many women access maternal, sexual and reproductive health care. And we are working towards tabling our response to the 36 recommendations within the usual timeframes, which is around the 25th of August. And I think I'd like to thank all of the committee members who sat on that inquiry, I think under the leadership of Senator Smith. It's a very important inquiry. It's got a lot of those recommendations, 36 recommendations. We have made some investments into women's health in this budget. Assistant Minister Carney and Health Minister Butler are very focused on looking at what we can do to make sure that we are providing the right support to women where they live and working through those issues. But unlike the former government, we will take responding to committee reports seriously.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks, President. What will the government do to ensure that people who are refused an abortion at their local hospital can get timely and free access to an alternative service? Will you commit to funding the alternative pathways to provide affordable abortions referred to in the Senate inquiry report?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, we'll work through the recommendations, as I said, but we come from a position where we acknowledge that depending where you live and what services are available, that there is a lack of fairness in terms of access to services across the country, and that for women, particularly living outside of major metropolitan areas, may struggle to access or do struggle to access affordable reproductive health care. So we will be working through those. But again, I would say some of the intention of the government can be shown in the way that we are making substantial investments into the area of women's health care. And we will continue to do that in our future budgets. We do see access to reproductive health care as an essential health care service for women, and we will work through those recommendations as the ministers finalise those and take it through our cabinet process.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Minister, in countries where contraception is free, there are fewer unintended pregnancies and fewer sexually transmitted diseases. Will the Labor government follow the lead of France, the UK and others and make contraception free?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Gallagher.
Well, I think we'll wait for the recommendation to the report. That hasn't been the government's position at this time, but we are working through the report and the issues and the submissions to the report. It hasn't been our position to date, and I think once you get our response to the committee report, that will make clear the government's position on all of those matters.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sterle.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Trade and Tourism, Senator Farrell. On the 31st of May 2023, the Australia-United Kingdom Free Trade Agreement entered into force. And according to the Minister's media release to mark the occasion, the Albanese Labor government's prioritised legislation in the Parliament to bring this deal into force in record time, delivering on its commitment to help businesses diversify their trade and help bring down the cost of living for Australians. How will this free trade deal benefit Australian exporters, families and young people?
Thank you, Senator Sterle. Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thank Senator Sterle for his very good question. And I know he's got a great interest in trade, particularly as he comes from Western Australia. The trade agreement with the United Kingdom is one of Australia's most comprehensive and ambitious. The agreement eliminates tariffs on over 99% of Australian goods exported to the United Kingdom. Two-way merchandise trade with the United Kingdom was worth $10 billion in 2022. The removal of tariffs significantly increases opportunities for Australian agricultural exports, including beef, sheep meat, wine and sugar, as well as manufactured products such as auto parts and cosmetic products. The deal supports service trade worth over $4 billion by making it easier for service professionals to do business in the UK market. From January 2024, Australians applying for the UK's Youth Mobility Scheme will see the maximum eligible age rise to 35, and they will gain the ability to stay in the United Kingdom for up to 3 years. The agreement underpins and deepens our already strong bilateral investment relationship with the United Kingdom, which is the second largest source of foreign direct investment in Australia. The deal will help to lower the cost of living pressures for Australian families by making consumer goods cheaper and reduce input and running costs for businesses. It's a great deal that will benefit all Australians. The government is now focused on implementation and advocacy to support utilisation of this gold standard agreement.
Thank you, Senator Farrell. Senator Sterle, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. And thank you, Minister. And with the historic free trade deal with the United Kingdom now in place, can the Minister please provide an update on trade negotiations with the European Union?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President, and thanks, Senator Sterle, for your follow-up question. Yes, I can update you on those negotiations. The Albanese government is currently focused on securing the best possible outcomes in a trade agreement negotiations with the European Union. The EU is massive, high-income market of around 450 million people with a GDP of $24 trillion. Last week in Brussels, I met with my EU counterpart, Executive Vice President Dombrovskis, as well as the EU Agriculture Commissioner. The key message I conveyed was that Australia could only sign a deal that delivers new, commercially meaningful market access for our agricultural products. We will persist and persevere, even if it means negotiations extending beyond mid-year. Our world-class producers, exporters and workers deserve the best.
Has expired. Senator Sterle, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. In addition to the negotiations to secure a trade agreement with the European Union, could the Minister please outline other action taken by the Albanese government to diversify trade and investment opportunities?
Minister Farrell.
Thank you, President. And Senator Sterle, yes, I can deal with those issues. The Albanese government is delivering on our election commitment to diversify trade and investment opportunities for Australian businesses, including by strengthening economic ties in the Indo-Pacific. Last month, I participated in a ministerial meeting in Detroit to advance negotiations on an Indo-Pacific economic framework. It was a successful meeting which concluded negotiations to strengthen cooperation and supply chains. Negotiations are on track to finalise the remaining pillars of the framework this year. Australia and India are actively progressing an ambitious, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement that will build on the ECTA market access outcomes. On the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, ministers are scheduled to meet in Auckland next month to admit the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Tyrrell.
Thank you, President. My question is for the Minister representing the Attorney-General, Senator Watt. On the 25th of May, legal practitioners on the northwest coast of Tasmania were advised the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia could no longer operate out of Burnie because there was no suitable premises available. It has since been revealed that the court has not had a permanent home in Burnie since 2021, when they were squeezed out of the Burnie Magistrates Court. Since coming into government, why hasn't Labor found a permanent home for the Federal Circuit and Family Court in Burnie?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Tyrrell. I am aware that this has been a long-standing issue, and I recognise the advocacy that you've undertaken on this, along with a number of Labor senators, I must say, to ensure that the community of Burnie and the northwest of Tasmania receives the services that it needs. And I take the interjection from Senator Scarr, what about us? Well, I guess the reason we're having this discussion is that it wasn't fixed under the previous government for the 10 years that they were in government. So any time you want to ask another Dorothy, feel free.
Order.
But it is a serious matter, Senator Tyrrell, and people do deserve proper access to family court and circuit court services no matter where they live. I will undertake to provide you with some further information about that, but I'm sure you're aware of the efforts that the Attorney-General in particular has undertaken to boost family court access to all Australians, no matter where they live. Of course, we remember that not only under the former government did Burnie and the northwest of Tasmania not have those services, but in fact it was the former government that abolished the family court. That's how little they cared for the family court, whether it was in Burnie or anywhere else. It would appear they're unrepentant. It would appear they're unrepentant in their actions in abolishing the family court, which have been proven to provide worse outcomes for Australians. We, of course, recognise that the family court does need improvements and did need improvements, but the solution to that was not to abolish the court in its entirety, which was exactly what the former government did. I mean, you can dress it up however you want, but you abolished the family court, and that came at the expense, in particular, of women and children fleeing domestic violence who needed the services, the specialist services that were able to be obtained through the family court. But as I say, Senator Tyrrell, I'll come back to you with the precise information that you're seeking.
Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you. I've heard from a constituent, let's call her Linda, who's a single mum in Smithton who doesn't own a car and so has to now go and take a 6-hour one-way 3-bus journey to get to a family court hearing. How is it she's spending more getting to court than the federal government is spending on getting a court at all?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Watt.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you again, Senator Tyrrell. I understand from my very good friend and Northwest Tasmania's greatest champion, Senator Urquhart. Some in fact describe her as the Minister for Braddon. That's how good an advocate she is for the northwest of Tasmania. That local governments in the region are working to find new premises to ensure that those services can be made available, and that the movement from the Burnie Arts Centre is due to refurbishment needs of the existing premises. Obviously, that's not a satisfactory permanent solution. It sounds to me like those premises probably needed refurbishment some time ago, and there's a few people from Tasmania sitting on the other side of the chamber that might have liked to have taken the opportunity, but yet again we step up to the plate with the support of people like Senator Tyrrell. So the action is being taken to find those new premises to ensure that people get the services they deserve.
Thank you, Senator Watt. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you. How is it, because I've got to ask, that you've found $240 million to fund a stadium in Hobart that nobody wants, but you can't find a single lonely cent to fund the family court in Burnie that Burnie actually needs?
I'm waiting for order before I call the minister. Senator Wong. Minister.
Thank you, President, and thank you again, Senator Tyrrell. Just to add to the information I provided you already, my understanding is that the court and its representatives have gone down to Burnie last week to source a new location for the court, to find a new and safe location for the circuit when it goes to Burnie. The Attorney-General is monitoring the situation closely, and his department is working closely with the courts. We certainly acknowledge that not having a family court circuit presence in Burnie is a problem, and this will be treated as a priority. I did hear some interjections from some members of the opposition about the comparison you made to the stadium investment. And again, I make the point that some of those— I'm not talking about Senator Colbeck, of course, because we know Senator Colbeck supports the stadium. It's just that some of the others don't support the stadium. And what might have been nice is those who are now interjecting to have done something in 10 years to ensure that Burnie had the services that it needed.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator McKenzie.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Minister, in your statement to the Senate on Tuesday and repeatedly since that time, you've acknowledged you received information about Ms Higgins' sexual assault allegations, but did nothing with that information, absolutely nothing, in advance of it being made public. But on Tuesday, you couldn't or wouldn't answer questions about whether you provided feedback on the project interview, as has been widely reported. You refused to explain whether you'd provided questions to Mr Shiraz, as his text messages suggest. You avoided answering whether you communicated with any other person about questions to ask the former government. Minister, there are very straightforward answers to these questions if it's true that you did nothing with the information. Why can't you answer basic factual questions about your involvement in this matter?
Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Thank you, President. I thank Senator McKenzie for the question, and I have answered questions in this place. In fact, I've answered probably more questions than many of the people who knew much more than me. And the other point I would make is when I give a commitment to someone around confidentiality, I keep it. I don't breach confidentiality arrangements. I am prepared to withstand this line of questioning and the coverage from the media, but because I have— Well, Senator Rennick, I don't imagine women come to you with claims and concerns about sexual assault, but they come to me, and I will not breach their confidence.
Minister Gallagher, I am going to ask you to withdraw that comment about Senator Rennick, and I'm assuming that's what you're on your feet for. I think it is a personal reflection in my view. I just ask you to withdraw it.
To withdraw.
Thank you,
but women do come to me with raising concerns about sexual assault, sexual violence, sexual harassment, and one of the things I tell them is that your confidence is safe with me. Now, if I was to breach that and start splashing it all around the place, just for then I would be breaching that confidence, and I am not doing so.
Senator McKenzie, first supplementary.
Minister, despite repeatedly being asked basic questions of fact in this chamber over the last week, you've not been able to confirm whether you ever received the project interview before it was made public, whether you communicated with any other individual about the allegations before they were made public, and whether you encouraged the complainant to go to the police. Why do you refuse to be held accountable to this chamber? And why can't you answer basic factual questions about your involvement in this matter?
Order. Senator Watt. Minister, I haven't quite called you yet. I'm waiting for silence on my right. Minister, please continue.
Well, I think that's the same as the first question. I refer you to my statement, and I would say, and this is, I am very disappointed at this week at the work that we have done on Jenkins, on Respect at Work, on asking women to come forward when something happens to them, and then treating women the way they are being treated right now, it says something about this. And I am sorry Senator Reynolds is clearly upset about what happened to her. I am sorry about that.
Order.
And
Order.
I told her that.
Minister, please resume your seat. Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Wong.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Order.
It's all about
Order. Order. Senator Henderson. It's not interjection time. There are plenty of opportunities for you across the week to make whatever statements you want within the standing orders of the Senate. Question time is not one of them. And I'm asking for respect in this chamber from both sides. Senator Watt, your constant interjections, quite frankly, are very unhelpful, as are those on my left. Minister, please continue.
But I am also very sorry for Brittany Higgins. I'm sorry that documents about her personal life have been leaked.
Yep.
I'm sorry that a confidential draft
Order.
claim for compensation found its way into the front pages of a national newspaper. And I am sorry for all the women.
The time has expired. Senator McKenzie, second supplementary.
Minister, in response—
Senator McKenzie, please resume your seat. Senator Ruston, I heard that, and that was very unhelpful. And once again, it is a disrespectful interjection. Senator McKenzie, please ask your second supplementary.
Thank you. Minister, in response to a question yesterday about whether you were invited to Mr Shiraz's first wedding, you said, and I quote, "I think I was Chief Minister. I got a lot of invitations to a lot of things." Minister, you ceased being the Chief Minister in December 2014. The wedding was in 2018. Do you now wish to correct your statement to the Senate? Why can't you answer basic factual questions about your involvement in this matter?
Senator McKenzie, I'll refer you to the ruling I made yesterday in relation to that question, and my ruling was that it was not appropriate and quite unrelated to the first question that was asked, and the minister was invited to answer that question to the best of her recollection.
Chair, just on your ruling, I'm not asking about the actual event. It was the fact that the minister made a statement in the chamber that referred to a 2018 event, that she was still Chief Minister. Her information to the chamber was incorrect, and I'm giving her the opportunity to correct it.
I will seek the advice of the clerk, but I think and I apologise if my ruling was incorrect, but the clerk has reinforced that my ruling is correct, and I will invite the senator to answer as much of your question as she feels able to do so or wants to do so. Minister.
Thank you. Well, to be honest, I didn't know when the wedding was. I hadn't linked the two events. If I have given an incorrect answer, then I would correct that. I was making the point that I get a lot of invitations to a lot of things. If it wasn't in my role as Chief Minister but in another role, then so be it. Needless, I did not attend the wedding. The invitation was declined. But I get thousands of invitations to things. Many of them I can't go to. And I would just say again, because people are, I think, the insinuation around the questioning today has been that we caused harm to Senator Reynolds, or that's what she feels.
Order.
And I would say that when that was drawn to our attention, and it was, we took that on. And when we were
Minister,
asked
to
stand back from Senator Reynolds—
Minister, the time for answering has expired. Please resume your seat. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians, Senator Gallagher. Minister, I know you've had a pretty tough week, so all I just want is a yes or no to this question, if you can, please. Does the Albanese Labor government acknowledge the existence of Indigenous identity fraud?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, Senator Hanson. The way the Albanese government deals with indigeneity is a three-part test that has been widely accepted and hasn't changed. We apply the following common law criteria for the purposes of determining eligibility for First Nations specific services. That a person is—
Minister, please resume your seat. Senator Hanson.
Point of order. There's no reference to my question. Was only an answer. Do you acknowledge the existence of Indigenous identity fraud?
Yes. Thank you, Senator Hanson. I think the minister's being relevant, and I'll ask her to continue, but I'll continue to listen very carefully. As you know, I can't direct the minister to answer, but I can draw her attention to the question if she's not being relevant. She's just a few seconds into the question. I'll listen carefully, and if she's not relevant, I'll draw her attention to the question. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, because I think this does go to answering the question. So in order to determine eligibility for, or to be eligible for First Nations specific services, a person must be of Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander descent, identifies as an Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander, and is accepted as such by the community in which they live or have previously lived. This is a widely accepted test by government agencies, First Nations organisations and community organisations. It's a common-sense approach. The way it works in law is well established.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
That was not an answer to my question. My second supplementary is, considering the evidence that Indigenous identity fraud exists and evidence has been brought to Minister Linda Burney's attention, what measures has the Albanese Labor government put in place to prevent, identify, investigate and prosecute Indigenous identity fraud?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I'm not across what Senator Hanson alleges that has been provided to Minister Burney, but the approach that we take is a positive approach around how to test eligibility for First Nations services, and if that eligibility criteria isn't met, one of those three, then that eligibility would not be.
Senator Hanson.
I'm not talking about eligibility. My question was, what has been put in place to actually address the issues?
Senator Hanson, if you were raising a point of order, then you need to stand and make the point of order clear. If you were raising a point of order, then the minister is being relevant to your question. Minister, please continue.
Thank you. Well, again, I mean, the eligibility is, as I set out. The government doesn't recognise identity fraud, and I'm sure that Minister Burney is dealing with all of the matters that are raised with her in her role as Minister for Indigenous Australians carefully and competently, as she does with everything.
Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
Again, not answered. Considering the evidence that Indigenous identity fraud exists, which has been reported numerous times and in courts, will the Labor senators support my motion to refer this vital matter to an inquiry by the Legal and Constitutional Affairs References Committee or any other committee? Are you prepared to actually address this problem that we have in Australia so that people are actually of Aboriginal and Indigenous background, that they can receive the benefits that many other Australians can't get?
The time for asking the question has expired. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, firstly, no. The answer to the question is no, we will not support. Secondly, we don't recognise identity fraud. Thirdly, I don't believe it's up to an individual in this place to decide who gets to be an Aboriginal person in this country. First Nations people have lived here for over 65,000 years. We should all be really proud of that, as being sharing the same country as the longest continuing civilisation in this country. And the Albanese government's priority, apart from ensuring adequate funding and resources and co-design processes for services to support First Nations Australians is to ensure that recognition done through constitutional amendment through a voice to this nation's parliament. That is our priority. We look forward for every Australian having the opportunity to cast a vote on that later this year.
Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator White.
My question is to the Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry, Senator Watt. Our agriculture sector relies heavily on good trading relationships. We export around 70% of what we produce in Australia, and the industry has a goal of growing the agriculture sector to $100 billion in farm gate value by 2030. I listened intently to what Minister Farrell said, but can the minister also outline how the recent entry into force of the UK FTA will benefit the agriculture industry and assist in reaching their goal of $100 billion by 2030?
Thank you, Senator White. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator White, who I think has asked me more questions about agriculture than the entire National Party combined. So it is good. It is good that there is one party in this chamber that actually cares about agriculture and cares about regional Australia. They could take a few tips from you, Senator White. Well, I'm very pleased to say—
Minister, please resume your seat. Order across the chamber. Minister Watt.
Thank you. Thank you, President. And I haven't even said colour-coded spreadsheets yet. Imagine when I get to that. I'm very pleased to say that following the agreement reached between Prime Minister Albanese and the British Prime Minister Sunak, the UK-Australia Free Trade Agreement entered into force a fortnight ago on the 31st of May. This is one of the most comprehensive, innovative and ambitious free trade agreements ever concluded by Australia. And I'm pleased to say that our Aussie farmers, food producers and exporters, the kind of people that Senator White cares about and asks questions about, are some of the big winners here. Tariffs have been eliminated on over 99% of Australian goods exported to the United Kingdom, including short and medium grain rice, wine, honey, nuts and olive oil. Tariff-free quotas for beef and sheep meat, sugar, wheat and meslin, long and broken rice, barley and dairy will provide immediate benefits for farming communities. Within 10 years of entering into force, tariffs on all agricultural goods will be completely eliminated. Again, terrific news for our producers. The potential value of some of these key outcomes in the first year of entry into force include $465 million for beef, $215 million for sheep meat, $37 million for sugar, $200 million for dairy, cheese and butter, and $50 to $55 million for Australian wine. In addition, the Free Trade Agreement includes outcomes which will make it easier for farmers and exporters to take advantage of these great opportunities, like a reduction in costs and red tape by making it simpler for traders to prove the originating status of their goods, faster customs clearance timeframes providing greater certainty to exporters, and transparent trade and investment rules so savings can be made of administrative costs.
The time for answering has expired. Senator White, first supplementary.
Thanks, Minister, for acknowledging my great interest in agriculture and the many questions that I have asked, and my count, I think, is at least 10 to 0. The UK FTA is a huge achievement and a great win for Australian agriculture and our farmers. Can the minister give an update on other market access improvements resulting from trade agreements that will benefit our Aussie farmers? Because I'm sure they're listening at home to your answer.
Minister Watt. Order. Minister Watt, please resume your seat. Order. 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 Minister Watt, please continue.
Thank you. And in fact, I'll take that interjection from Senator Scarr. I had the great pleasure of milking a cow in northern Tasmania recently. A number of senators, including the Nationals, probably haven't been on a dairy farm for a long time, but I was on a dairy farm only this week. I'm happy to go and introduce the National Party to dairy farms if they'd like to come along. I'd happy to introduce you to a cow, the National Party.
Senator Watt, please resume your seat. Order. Order. Senator McKenzie. Senator McKenzie and others. Minister Watt.
Thank you, President. And all I can say is thank God for Senator White, thank God for Senator Ciccone, thank God for Senator Polley, thank God for all the senators in this chamber who have an interest in agriculture, an industry that we thought the National Party cared about but needs to be escorted onto a dairy farm to actually have an opportunity to milk a cow, it would appear. Well, as I say, the UK FTA is not the only opportunity for Australian producers. The India Free Trade Agreement is also opening up massive opportunities that we're taking advantage of. We've already got avocados going in there. There's going to be a lot more. This government is opening new markets without the help of the National Party, and we're going to get on with it.
Minister Watt, time for answering has expired. Senator White, second supplementary.
Yep, second supplementary. So, Minister, we know the agriculture sector relies on negotiating technical market access conditions with trading partners, including biosecurity and food safety requirements, all of which were canvassed in last year's RAT inquiry. But can the minister give an update about recent technical market access achievements that he and the government have been involved in?
Minister Watt.
Thank you again, Senator White, and I think that does bring it to 10 questions about agriculture. You've 10-0, as you say, and I can only hope the Socceroos have a similar result when they play in Beijing tonight. Again, I thank you for your interest, and the Australian government is committed to expanding and diversifying access to export markets in support of industry's ambition to grow to $100 billion in farmgate value by 2030. We are ably assisted in that task by hard-working officials of the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, who work quietly behind the scenes to satisfy the technical requirements set by each free trade agreement that we enter. In the first half of this financial year alone, the Department of Agriculture recorded 51 technical market access achievements worth nearly $5 billion potentially to Australia's food and fibre industries. So it is a whole-of-government effort that we're putting into this. We're not being particularly well supported by the National Party. In fact, the Leader of the Nationals and the Shadow Minister for Agriculture, Mr Littleproud, didn't even show up for the debate on the agriculture budget this week, just as he did last year as well.
Senator Wong. I have Senator Wong on her feet.
I ask that further questions be placed on notice.
Thank you.